Welcome everyone to the celebration of 25 years of the Wits Writing Centre. Delighted to welcome you all. I'm hoping these 2 days are going to be very, very wonderful. We begin with a welcome from the Senior Director in the Academic Affairs Office, Professor Grayson, who we thank hugely for all her support and insight into what we're doing. So thank you, Diane.
So thank you for this opportunity to be with you. I'm afraid I can only be with you for a few minutes, but it will be quality time, I'm hoping. Firstly, congratulations, Pam, to you and to everyone who's been involved in the Writing Centre and the Wits Writing Programme. I really think it's trailblazing. I think it's incredibly important. And I'm an avid fan. I think that the work you do is so important and wonderful. And I'm incredibly impressed by writers. Writers really are my heroes and heroines. I think it's almost magical to me to be able to take words and not just create meaning, but create images and create ideas that not just express the writer's views, but that change the reader. It's an extraordinary process, and I think it's fantastic that Pam, you and all the people that you work with are engaged in this process of doing it for yourselves, but also creating this extraordinary experience for all the people who you work with. One of the things I feel quite sad about is that a lot of our students are missing out on that, and I want to say life-changing experience of creating writing, of being part of the process. We know we have a problem with a lot of ghostwriting companies. Now we have ChatGPT, and I'm not against ChatGPT. I think that it can be used in a lot of very positive ways. But when students, or staff for that matter, use it instead of doing their own writing, I think it's terribly sad. Apart from the fact that it may be unethical, I think it's terribly sad because I think the experience of crafting a piece of writing is really life-enhancing. So I have written in my lifetime thousands and thousands and thousands of pages because I've written academic articles, and I've written notes for students, and I've written textbooks, and I've written frameworks and policy documents and theses and all those things. I've never done creative writing yet. It's on my agenda for my retirement. But I do know from personal experience that writing is not a process where you take a fully formed thought that's in your head and you put it on paper and that's it. And I think this part of the sadness and part of why our students maybe resort in some cases to means of producing writing that is not their own is because there's that misconception. If I just take an idea that's in my head and I put it down on paper, that's it, that's writing. And so I think one of the things that's really important that I know that you do, but we need to get the word out, is that writing is a creative process, but it's also a labor. You have a thought, it will never be fully formed for as long as it remains in your head. When you get something down on paper, which will never, as I said, be the fully formed thought initially, the process then, in my mind, actually begins. The crafting, for what I was saying earlier, the crafting, the working, the reworking. And I'm not a sculptor, but I guess it must be something like what a sculptor does. You have a hunk of stone or marble or something. You get the rough idea, you get the general image of what you want it to be, and then you craft. You chisel away and you smooth and you work on it until at a certain point you say, this is now my work of art. And it takes time and it takes effort and it takes standing back and coming back and standing back and coming back. And somehow I'm hoping that more and more we will help our students to understand this process that is both creative and is hard, requires effort and dedication, but when you stand back, not from your sculpture in this case, but from your piece of writing, I think there can be immense satisfaction in saying, look what I've produced. Excuse me. And I know for myself, and I'm sure all of you would have the experience of coming back to a piece of writing that you wrote 1, 5, 10, in my case 20 years ago, and say, wow, I wrote that. And being excited and happy and pleased and interested, you know, in what I was capable of doing at that time, and what it said about me and where I was as a person and my own thinking. So it's also part of one's personal journey and personal history, I would say. So my own, I'm being very personal here, and I hope you don't mind. But my own view of writing is that it has many layers. So yes, we create meaning, and as I said a moment ago, you never take something fully formed out of your head and then you just transfer it to paper. That doesn't work like that, because in the process of trying to write, the thought changes, morphs, grows. But that process of creating meaning on the one hand, and then creating, I don't want to be so bold and say art. So some people produce art, and a lot of it is on the bookshelves. But there's another layer, in my opinion, which is not just about creating meaning, and particularly if you're writing an academic text, which is mostly what I do, something that will mean something to someone else that they will be able to learn from. But there's another layer of working with the words, so that it's not just a bold statement of facts, so that it's a flow of words, carefully selected, well ordered, that is attractive to read. I was saying to Fuad earlier that when I was studying my PhD in the US, a lot of the academic writing anyway that I read was really boring. It was really hard to read because it was not nicely written. The ideas and the facts were there, but it was not nicely written. And so I think it's important, even if you're writing an academic text, to write nicely, to write in a way that it's enjoyable for your reader to read, that you don't have to stop every few words because you say, that didn't flow, or that was an ugly turn of phrase, you know, to make your writing attractive regardless of the purpose of the writing. So I think there's those two different levels. The one is how clearly are you communicating, and whether your idea is for an academic publication, or whether your idea is because you're trying to create a character and you want people to understand your character. That's the one layer, is the meaning. But then the other layer is the writing itself, the writing as a form of art. So I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing. I really encourage you to continue. I congratulate you enormously for your 25 years. I will continue to support you for as long as I can, and I will continue to make sure that the executive of this university also acknowledges the importance of your work. So thank you. Congratulations.
Right. So I'd like to give you a bit of background to the Writing Centre and its history. This festival celebrates 25 years, but actually we're a bit older. And we will have consultants who were in the 1996 cohort, volunteer consultants. The Writing Centre was one of the first in the country. The Law Writing Centre, as an initiative of the Law Student Council, started at about the same time, and the Wits School of Education Writing Centre 10 years ago. Intellectually, the Wits Writing Centre began with a strong opposition to the prevailing deficit model, which is an impossible beginning point of learning, And we also began with a commitment to the energy and power of bright, imaginative, hopeful students working together, like you. Our development has been a product of that energy and power, and we are indebted to all of those who have contributed to our journey, and are deeply grateful to those who have returned to make this festival a time of reconnection. Deep thanks are owed to those who worked very hard in a short time to make these 2 days possible. In particular, we are indebted to Fuad Asfour for the terrific posters, the designs, the creation of the brochure, and the beautiful tote bag. And many thanks to the whole team, all of you, for working so hard to bring this festival together. We hope that the events today and tomorrow will ignite new ideas and stimulate interesting and fruitful conversations. So going through the programme, our first session focuses on storytelling with Dr. Nomsa Matlosa. Nomsa was our storyteller in residence over here at this desk many years ago. We ran workshops together, and I saw the power of her storytelling to surface creativity, improvisation, and to express cultural authority and cultural power. I think many of you can remember those sessions. They changed the room, and they brought different people to the fore. Nomsa has always held dear the idea of a storytelling academy, and using storytelling as a medium of learning, which she might tell you more about. And she also publishes books in isiZulu. After the writing group, there will be a session on the next session will be the writing group run by Laurie Jo Bateman. Writing groups can fulfill Peter Elbow's dream of writing with power and writing without teachers. Please join Laurie Jo and then Fuad tomorrow for sessions which will give you a taste of this strategy for sustainable writing. After the writing group, there will be a session on citizen scholars led by Lerato Seahatsi. The late Professor Jim Clowes from Seattle used to tell me that it was important to encourage students to innovate, to have ideas, have terrific imaginative projects, and then for the next 50% make those projects real. In the Citizen Scholar session, you will be introduced to 3 WWC consultants who have done exactly that, and they will be in conversation with Lerato and with Catherine Sofianos from the Canon Collins Trust. Then we moved to the Graduate Centre for the first of the Where Are You Now sessions with alumni, some of whom will be there in person, some joining online. After the Where Are You Now, we moved to the atrium for what promises to be a fascinating and enjoyable performance of jazz appreciation and cultural heritage in Mamelodi, introduced by Professor Brett Piper. Then we turned to the Writing Centre for 2 book launches, the first with Dr. Haber, who we are proud to say has launched all her books with us. You can see some of the covers here. And she will be presenting the collection of columns from Noni Jabavu, the journalist, called A Stranger at Home, which she edited with Dr. Atambili Masola. Finally, today, we launch Professor Luke Sinwell, also an ex-writing consultant, and his book, The Participation Paradox, which I think reflects his teacher's insight into the imperfect, sometimes imperfect listening in social science. Then tomorrow morning we have the session on writing groups, memory and languages, publishing and the visual arts, a conversation between the Black Consciousness Collective and the newly formed Black Praxis Group. After lunch we go back to the Graduate Centre for a discussion about ways forward for writing intensive courses, a discussion about Writing Centre futures, and for the second alumni discussion. At 5:30 we return to the WWC for the final book launch, which will be a triple blast of 3 poetry volumes by Gail Dendi, Sarah Lubasha, and Kabelo Mofokeng, all published by Butsotso, which is already represented here by Bongani. We hope that you enjoy these 2 days, and I'm sure more people will come. Thank you for coming here for the very early start. And so we can begin with a terrific return of the great Nomsa Matlosa.